All right, jumping right in. Today, it's Indian Parliamentary Forums. Especially crucial for anyone, interested in how Indian democracy works, especially those getting ready for those UPSC exams.
Yeah.
We've got some excerpts here from a text all about parliamentary procedures, and believe me, way more interesting than it might sound at first.
Definitely.
We're going to break down what these forums actually are, why they matter in today's world, and how all this knowledge can be your secret weapon, whether you're, aiming for the civil services or just want to be a more informed citizen, really.
It's fascinating. These forums, they're more relevant now than ever before.
Oh, really?
The source, it quotes NCAL and S.L. Schachter, talking about how nations are increasingly interdependent, and they really hit the nail on the head. Think about it. Climate change, economic crises, these are challenges that just go way beyond borders. We got to find solutions together.
Makes total sense. But why parliamentary forums specifically? I mean, we've got diplomats and these international organizations, right? What makes these forums stand out?
That's a great question. And the answer is really in the unique dynamics you see in these forums. When parliamentarians come together, they can have much more frank and open discussions, less diplomatic pressure, so they can really get to the heart of the issues and share their honest perspectives.
Oh, I see.
It's almost like a pressure valve release.
Okay.
Leading to more genuine conversations and hopefully more effective solutions.
So it's less about like those official statements and more about real conversations, getting different viewpoints out in the open.
Precisely. Plus, it's an awesome chance for what the source calls cross-fertilization of ideas. You have parliaments from everywhere, some old, some new, each with its own way of doing things, its own experiences. They can learn from each other's successes, even failures, leading to a much more dynamic exchange of knowledge,
Like a global think tank for democracy.
Yeah.
Always evolving, adapting.
Yeah.
Now let's focus on the Indian Parliamentary Group, the IPG.
Okay.
What is it exactly, and why is it so important?
So the IPG, it's essentially India's gateway to this whole global network of parliaments. It was formed back in 1949, right as India was becoming independent, stepping onto the world stage. It's open to every single current member of parliament, giving them this platform to engage with global issues and their counterparts, from all over the world.
So anyone who's an MP in India right now is automatically part of this group. That's a huge network.
It is.
What about former MPs? Can they still be involved?
That's interesting. Former MPs can still participate, but there are some limitations. Like, they can't officially represent India at international meetings or conferences.
I see.
The source doesn't say exactly why, but it probably wants to make sure those active parliamentarians, the ones directly involved in shaping policy right now, are the main voices of India on the global stage.
Makes sense. It's a balance between experience and being actively involved. So we've got this group of current and former MPs, but what do they actually do? What are the IPG's main objectives?
Well, the source lists several key objectives, and it's clear the IPG has a lot on its plate. One of their main goals is to really build those connections between Indian MPs and their counterparts from other countries. This includes organizing delegations, goodwill missions, and a lot of behind-the-scenes networking.
Sounds like a lot of diplomacy, relationship building.
Exactly. Another big objective is to study, those really crucial questions that affect both India and the global community as a whole. They do this by organizing seminars, lectures, even arranging trips abroad for MPs so they can get firsthand experience with other parliamentary systems.
So it's not just about talking, it's about learning and understanding how other countries tackle similar challenges. What I find really interesting is they even have an Outstanding Parliamentarian Award.
They do.
It's like adding a little bit of healthy competition in there.
Yeah. Recognition can be a powerful motivator.
Right.
And speaking of building relationships, they've also got these things called parliamentary friendship groups, specifically designed to build connections with particular countries. It's like creating these more focused channels for dialogue and cooperation.
It's like taking diplomacy to a personal level, building those one-on-one connections. Fascinating how the IPG covers so much ground, from international relations to knowledge sharing. But I'm curious, how does the IPG actually fit into the bigger global scene? Do they work with any other international organizations?
They do. The IPG is really plugged into some major players on the global stage. The source specifically mentions the Inter-Parliamentary Union, or IPU, and the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, or CPA.
Okay, those are some big names. Gotta admit, not super familiar with them. Could you give us a quick rundown? What are they all about?
Yeah, of course. Think of them like global clubs, but for parliaments.
Yeah.
They're platforms for parliaments from different countries to get together, share like best practices, and collaborate on tackling these common challenges we've been talking about. The IPU, that's the bigger one, over 178 member parliaments from all over the world.
Wow.
Their main focus, promoting peace and cooperation, strengthening democratic institutions, and encouraging dialogue on global issues.
So kind of like a United Nations, but for parliaments.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. They create this space for parliaments to connect, learn from each other, and really work together on solutions. Then you've got the CPA, which focuses specifically on the Commonwealth of Nations. It has around 180 member parliaments and branches from Commonwealth countries, and those with, close ties to the Commonwealth historically.
Got it. So both organizations are about connecting parliaments worldwide. But what's the benefit for the IPG specifically? Why is it so important for them to be a part of these networks?
Well, for the IPG, being a member of these organizations, it's like opening up this whole world of opportunities. First off, it lets Indian parliamentarians network with their counterparts from all over the globe. Just imagine the connections, the potential collaborations, even some friendly debates, maybe?
It's like this massive networking event. But for the people who shape policies, make decisions that affect entire nations, I can only imagine the kind of insights and perspectives they share on those settings.
Exactly. And it's also a great way for the IPG to stay updated on global trends, reforms in how parliaments operate. By participating in all the activities that the IPU and CPA organize, they can really keep their finger on the pulse of what's happening in other democracies. Super important for staying relevant and adapting to this ever-changing world.
So it's not just about making friends, it's about keeping up with the times, making sure India's parliamentary system is in sync with the best practices worldwide.
Absolutely. And we can't forget those opportunities to participate in international delegations, conferences. This lets IPG members represent India on that global stage, voice their opinions on issues that really matter to the nation, and contribute to shaping the global agenda.
That sounds like an incredible opportunity, taking all that knowledge and experience gained through the IPG and using it on a global scale.
Exactly. It really is. The IPG's involvement in the IPU and CPA really shows their commitment to global engagement, to collaboration. They understand that tackling the challenges facing the world today requires working together, finding that common ground.
So we've gone from what's the IPG to understanding its crucial role in both Indian and global politics. We've unpacked its structure, its functions, and its connections to these powerful international networks. It's clear that the IPG is much more than just a group of parliamentarians. It's a force for collaboration, knowledge sharing, and ultimately finding solutions to global challenges.
Couldn't have said it better myself. The IPG is a prime example of how this parliamentary diplomacy can help create a more peaceful and cooperative world.
But let's bring it back home now. Why should all this matter to our listeners? Whether you're a UPSC aspirant or just someone interested in how Indian democracy works, why should you care about the IPG? What's the takeaway here?
It's been a real journey exploring all these intricacies of the Indian Parliamentary Group and its significance on the global stage.
It really has. We've covered so much, from understanding the core functions and objectives of the IPG to its role in connecting India to the wider world through these organizations like the IPU and the CPA.
And it's amazing how the IPG's impact goes even beyond parliament and diplomacy. It touches the very fabric of Indian society and, its place in the world.
Absolutely. Like we said, for UPSC aspirants, understanding the IPG is a goldmine.
It is
Relevant to so many topics they'll see in the exam. It's packed with information on international relations, diplomacy, parliamentary procedures, and global issues, all super important stuff for anyone wanting to serve in the Indian civil services.
absolutely essential. But even for those not planning to take the exam, understanding the IPG is still really relevant to their lives.
Right, because the work they do influences policies, decisions that shape all our lives, right?
Exactly. Whether it's climate change, trade agreements, global security, the connections and collaborations that the IPG fosters, they have this ripple effect on India's future.
It reminds us that we're all part of this larger global community, and that cooperation is key to facing these challenges together. So where do we go from here? What can our listeners do to stay engaged, informed about the IPG?
Well, it's all about staying informed and connected. You can follow their activities through news reports, parliamentary publications, even social media. Pay attention to the issues they're focused on, the delegations they're sending out, the international conferences they're attending.
Yeah. By doing that, you get a much deeper understanding of India's role in the world and how those global issues actually impact your own life. It's about, seeing the bigger picture,